welcome to Framework. I am Al Schwartz. With me, as usual, is John Bernard.
Hey.
John, how's it going?
Okay, how you doing?
Well, it is with a heavy heart that I brought you here today, John, to tell you that I think I am officially out on The Mandalorian.
That's too bad. Okay.
We play some Sarah McLachlan over this. No.
I'm sorry. I understand. I mean, it was bound to happen eventually, right? You know?
Well, I don't think it was. I think there was a lane for this show, I think, to be good, and it is popular. So look at that. I don't really.
Less so now.
I don't know. Yeah, I hate to kind of like, if people like it, I don't really want to dissuade them from that.
Yeah, I think I'm going to be the guy who likes Mandalorian here. I can.
Okay.
Even this last season.
I felt something clicked for me here, almost like with the Na'vi and Avatar. That, like, you know what? I don't like these Mandos. Do not care for them. I don't like hanging out with them.
I'm not wild about them, I'll tell you. I kind of like a singular Mandalorian more than a whole bunch, it turns out. I think that's they're better on their own. For one Mandalorian, maybe, you know, all these Mandalorians, too many.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
that's the big thing. I think that's one of the biggest, like, I mean, it made all the sense in the world when they conceived the show initially. It's the Boba Fett, weekly adventure show. Yeah. Where bounty hunter and the cool armor and jetpack going around getting into space adventures. And, like, that seems kind of unmissable, right? Of course. That's like, how can you fuck that up?
Yeah. Add in a lone wolf and cub figure, the little... A little cute, marketable baby that everyone seems to like. You got a hit show.
Yeah, that worked. I mean, it is a hit. Yeah. But I do think that ultimately having the design of the Mandalorians is all wrong, I feel. And that starts with the idea that Boba Fett is the prototypical Mandalorian. Like, I think what was so cool about Boba Fett is the implication when you look at him. His armor's all beat up. He's got these scalps that are like, are those Wookiee scalps on his belt? Yeah, damn right they are. But the idea that he is a sort of unique figure going through here with his, like, bespoke set of armaments is what made him interesting and cool, and made the universe seem that much cooler. That there's this guy in it who's sort of bounced around so many different corners of it. He's accumulated all this weird and unique crap that he can shoot at Luke Skywalker. And then what the Mandalorian does by building a whole show out of that is like, no, actually, he just had your standard issue Mandalorian starter kit. Everybody gets that helmet. Everybody gets that jetpack. Everybody's got that same armor. And it's like, it immediately loses something there. It took me a while to really, like, get through, like, think through that, have it grasp that. But yeah, the idea that Boba Fett is just wearing the uniform of the Mandos is ultimately very disappointing to me.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Star Wars lore is a fractured, complicated thing that has multiple truths at this point that are in contradiction. Boba Fett was originally a Mandalorian, right? Like, that's how we know what Mandalorians are, is because we were like, well, Boba Fett's wearing Mandalorian armor. And it kind of got left at that. I think how
the original seed of it was said that he was wearing Mandalorian armor.
Right.
But the implication was sort of that he had scavenged it from somebody because it was so obviously beat up.
And they weren't really a people anymore, I guess, is the idea.
Right.
But, I mean, this is like far afield of the movies. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that worked over time into he was the last of the Mandalorians, and that's kind of cool in its own right. But the idea that there's more Mandalorians, okay, the idea there's more Mandalorians and they all look and act just like him is a bummer, I feel.
Well, I mean, we go back to the Knights of the Old Republic, and Mandalorians are very much a going concern there, and they have a philosophy and a culture and I mean, it's not the same outfit, but I mean that kind of goes to your point, actually, that Boba's is a bit more, it's a bespoke thing,
right.
The Mandalorians culturally, there are aspects of that, but that's not exactly what they are or what they look like. So that all works, I guess. I mean, we certainly talked a lot about Knights of the Old Republic, not thinking the Mandalorians never came up there.
Right.
They work fine there. Why can't they do that in this?
Yeah, they have their armor there that is clearly their military armor. Mm-hmm. There's sort of a uniform that they're wearing, and they don't wear it all the time because it's weird that video game from 20 years ago has such a better handle on world building than the flagship property of the Disney Corporation in the year of our Lord 2023. But it allowed their culture to be more multifaceted than just being like the whole thing didn't have to be built out around the armor.
I have to admit, this is something I've never quite gotten okay with, is that the central philosophy of Mandalorian, as presented on the show, with the not taking off the armor thing, in particular, is the dumbest shit ever. It is absolutely insane.
It really is.
It's something I cannot compass. It is not a way to go through your life, obviously. Like it cannot be done, obviously. Then this is borne out every time they try to justify or explain. Well, this is how it works when everyone's at dinner together. We all walk off separately at the same time, so we can take our masks off and eat in private. That's so dumb. That's so contrary to any way you would want to run a war camp at night. I can't get over that.
Yeah. And you can't go anywhere. You can't go anywhere without announcing your presence because you have to wear this big clunky thing that announces who you are and what you're about. Element of surprise being an aspect of warfare that I think military people are pretty into. It's been a while since I've read my Sun Tzu, but they don't have that. I mean, what they have is jetpacks, and so all of their tactics are built around fighting based on having a jetpack on.
Which it seems effective, honestly, but it's just then why has no one else done it? I guess.
Yeah, it's sporadically cool for action beats, but in terms of making them the ultimate warriors of the galaxy, they are fairly limited. And you know what? If you want to play with this element of it, I'm like, okay, make there be like an elite warrior cast of Mandalorians that take this particular oath and never take the thing off.
Yeah, like then Palace of London Guard. The guys who
the beefeaters.
Yeah, sure.
They shower in those hats, right? When they go home, like they're not allowed to.
Right, they
to
have
take
to.
It off.
Yeah, they're.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just too many questions, too many things. So they never shower? Is that water never touches their head? Would they keep that on during lovemaking? That's got to be the thing, right?
Oh, definitely do.
Of course,
they definitely do.
Uh-huh.
But you know what that means? In Mandalorian culture, there is no oral.
Definitely no oral. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
I guess you got to use gadgets.
Oh God, it's. I mean, if we're saying it's not just. It's just the helmet, right? Well, this is another thing. Is it the helmet or the armor?
It is just the helmet. They talk about the helmet a lot,
dumb.
which even sounds even dumber than saying armor.
Yeah.
You kind of maybe you had a feint towards that sort of idea that our Mando, Din Djarin's group was this sort of sect that was more fanatical about the armor, and people are more lax about taking their helmets off elsewhere in Mandalorian society. But there's not enough Mandalorian society around, and now we're sort of in this third season especially doing this whole arc of reuniting the Mandalorians and reestablishing their culture and everything, but it's only 20 people, and so it can't feel very grandiose to me.
That seems like that would something that probably should have happened at some point. We should have found all the Mandalorians that were actually there, or whatever. I don't know what they're retaking Mandalore with. With their. It's definitely under 100 people total. All the tribes together.
Right.
And
yes.
Mm-hmm, I mean, that's enough to hang out on Greef Karga's planet. That's be, they can go hang out on a base there.
I do think this is actually a problem with Disney Plus and the volume specifically. It seems like that they've got that technology that allows them to kind of, somewhat convincingly render these alien backgrounds, but it doesn't seem like it fit many people on that soundstage because.
But can't you just Braveheart them into a huge crowd at some point? Surely.
They kind of did at the very closing scene of the last one, but they still only got to 100 people maybe.
Yeah.
When they're doing the relighting the forge and Bo-Katan's acclamation there. But I say even the Greef Karga planet, when he's evacuating his whole city and it turns out to be 14 people walking around with him. It's what Why is it so hard to get a crowd on this show? Its ambition would seem to be much bigger.
It does seem to be one of those television tells, like you would expect to see something like that on the A-Team, back when the sort of analog old school TV shows where they were just like, well, it's TV, it doesn't have a movie budget. And these, the whole idea is these look like movies now, or the line is blurred so as to it doesn't matter. But yeah, you can really tell in those crowd scenes, man. You can really tell the scale that they're operating on anytime a group gets involved.
Yeah,
that's weird.
Interesting. On the one and on the one hand, having 20 Mandalorians together in their dumb helmets is too many people in dumb helmets standing around for a dramatic scene. On the other hand, it's not enough to pull off this storyline. Is how I feel. Like there should be a Mandalorian society of more or less normal people, I think, that don't wear the helmets all the time, and maybe don't even fight all day long. Every day.
So
maybe some of them are maybe there's like a chef. I don't know.
Here's the thing.
One of them plays guitar.
You would think this should be the season where we learn about Mandalore, right? You would think this would be like the big Mandalorian. Okay, here's your Mandalorian lore. I don't know anything more about them than I did before this season. I don't think. I'm not entirely even sure how the factions work.
Me neither, and I know part of it's down to I was paying less and less attention as time goes on, but especially in the finale, there was a series of like dramatic statements of things that like the music swelled behind, and to make me think it was supposed to be a big moment. But I'm like, haven't we known this for a while already? Like, Moff Gideon, goes off on his big villain rant about how he was creating an army of force-powered super soldiers that were going to rule the galaxy, blah, blah, blah. And I honestly wasn't sure, like, wait, is he talking about, like, what he was doing right now in this episode, or is he talking about what they were doing last season with the robot Dark Trooper guys?
I don't remember what he was doing last season. It was
the exact same thing. Well, he was trying to create force-imbued super soldiers to fight the Mandalorians,
right?
And they got the whole gang together to beat them up, which is what they did this time.
Well, these ones had Beskar armor, so that's better.
But the other guys did too, didn't they? Like, because they could only be taken down by Beskar or Luke Skywalker's lightsaber. I don't know. I felt like we went from having an army of the indestructible robot troopers last year to 3 Praetorian guards this year as the big threat that, oh no, these guys can actually kill, can get through the Beskar. I mean, that's...
Yeah. Well, I did like how all the Mandalorians start going for the throat once the...
Yeah.
That was cool. Once the Beskar super troopers were revealed. More throat attacks would have been... that's the way to go. More throat attacks. Yeah. Look...
there you go. Well.
I was very... I kind of like this season. I have to admit, man. I can't disagree with any of the things you're saying, though. It's, I don't know. It becomes one of those things where I'm just like, oh, more slop, please. I'm fine with it. But I'm still kind of okay with this. This is a cut above Obi-Wan or the Book of Boba Fett for me because it is just weekly adventures that seem to more or less be okay. Like. Oh, one of the kids got stolen by a giant bird. Oh, we got to go up to the giant bird's nests. And the birds' kids are there. Oh, we got to fight. That's fine. That's a fun episode of adventure.
That episode was hilarious. Just everything about it. There's these ultimate warriors and their high technology just getting their shit wrecked by the local wildlife on the regular. They're flying and they chase them down their jetpacks, and their jetpacks run out of fuel, so they can't. But apparently they knew it. The guy's like, damn it, this happens every time. Like, what do you mean every time? This happens on the regular? Are you kidding me? But he knows where the thing's going. Well, so why even bother chasing him in the first place if you know you can't catch him? And then, of course, it keeps the kid alive in its mouth for 3 days.
This does reveal, this is, on an episode I did enjoy. It does kind of once again expose how not really thought out the Mandalorians are as a creed or a people or a civilization of any kind. They don't work fundamentally. And yeah, that's kind of borne out by everything that happens. So I guess, I don't know. I still had fun, though. Wasn't it fun when Christopher Lloyd showed up?
I was disappointed. I wanted more. Yeah, he was so old. I was at first I was concerned for his health, and then I was like, "Is that really all we're going to get out of him?"
He said
Scooby Doo.
He said "Hail Dooku," didn't he, or something like that at the end? That was fun.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
okay. Yeah. I don't like. I'm not going to make my argument for the season on the basis of the Christopher Lloyd Jack Black episode, but
no. But honestly, I mean, that one was silly.
Yeah.
But
yeah. A lot of
I
them were
didn't mind
silly.
Jack Black and Lizzo. They're fine. they can function in this world just fine, by my estimation. And I mean, they were playing that like the pill bug croquet game, which was like, yes, that's the kind of slop that I want you to give me more of.
Well, yeah, that's fun though. That's I mean, here's the thing. I want more good episodes mixed in with that. You know, I want more like kind of serious ones. I miss the sort of the Kurosawa inspired things that they used to do. You know. Stuff that felt like it was kind of a story about like a samurai Yojimbo kind of thing going on, where we have to get into a fort that's ruled by a corrupt governor, and that's what this episode's about. More episodes like that I would have enjoyed for sure. This had a lot more silly bullshit than usual, and anytime they did try a serious episode, it wasn't the best. But I don't know. I still kind of had fun coming back to this week to week. It's the worst season. It doesn't bode well for the future, but I'm not mad at it. I'm not upset with Mandalorian at this point. My wife is. Yeah.
Is her beef with the Mandalorian himself?
Would you say, Amanda, that your beef is with the Mandalorian himself or the show overall? Show? Okay, I'm handing it over to you.
I thought that they set up a lot of good tensions and conflict at the end of the last season and even in the Book of Boba Fett that kind of like were resolved right away and didn't really go anywhere, and I just kind of lost interest right away. You know, I thought that I don't know, I don't like how suddenly we're cool with the cult. Like the cult is just fine now. Like, you know, we find out that it's a cult, and we see in the Book of Boba Fett that, yeah, the armor is definitely, you know, applying cult rules, and we're supposed to be fine with that. It was just bad storytelling all around, and I was disappointed, and they wasted some really, really good, talented actors.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they showed the cult indoctrinating children this season, and it doesn't seem like the show thinks that makes them less appealing.
Yeah, if the cult had been like a thing he had to get away from, like being like, oh, I actually don't have to believe this stupid bullshit about never taking off your armor, and I can, you know, kind of function outside of that because it's not helping me. That probably would have been a better way to go. And, you know, just because once you really dive into the cult at all, you realize how shallow and unreal, like uncompelling, and
nope. But it was much more about Bo-Katan learning to just maybe
the cult's okay,
shut up, and maybe that the Mormons weren't so bad, and I should just wear the magic underwear anyway. And then they're like, yeah, but we'll end up giving you a free pass on that because we need to see somebody's face somewhere in the show, like. Yeah, but God, Amanda was so right about just the setting up conflict and then just kind of walking away from it like it's nothing. The whole sort of legal loophole of the Mandalorians, the hardliners will never accept Bo-Katan because she lost the Darksaber, and she can only take it back from Din Djarin by beating him in single combat, and that's a problem because they don't want to fight each other. We don't want them to fight each other, and that's a conflict for the show to play out. But instead, it contrives this legal loophole. It's like, well, actually, technically, this no-name villain took it from me, and she took it from them. So actually, she's already kind of, she won. And everybody who was doubtful of her 5 seconds ago was like, yeah, I guess that works. That's fine. You know, we didn't. There's no witnesses to this thing, but we Mandalorians are nothing if not a studiously legalistic warrior cult.
I mean, this is like been the problem with Star Wars of late for like everything. It's just they'll set something up and then they're just like, actually, we don't like that. We don't want to do that. Let's do something else entirely. Like that. I mean, the sequel trilogy is just like a case study in that. Episode by episode is just like, no, we're definitely going to ditch what we started last time and do a new thing now. The Darksaber amounts to absolutely nothing after like 2 seasons of build-up. I mean, this is true of Moff Gideon as well, frankly. Like, pretty much all the things they've built up, they kind of just dispatched without actually doing anything with them. Explaining them properly, making them have narrative. I'm talking myself into not liking The Mandalorian, Al. That's what's happening here. I'm
sorry.
I think I might be with you on this now. Yeah.
I cheered when the Darksaber was destroyed because that thing, it just looks so dumb.
It's not cool.
The idea, cool. Yeah. Oh, it's a lightsaber, but it's got a black blade. It's such like.
And it kind of looks like a sword a little bit more than usual lightsaber.
Yeah, but it's so like the first cool Star Wars idea I had in 7th grade. It doesn't look good on screen. I'm sorry. And also it's giving... The Mandalorians already have all the Star Wars weapons except for lightsabers. You don't need to give them lightsaber too. Can we maybe keep lightsabers a little special? I don't know. But whatever. They destroyed that one. That's great. I think
by crushing the handle. It was kind of a weak handle, it turned out. Yeah.
And it crushed her hand. It actually hurt one of the heroes for a second. I mean,
for a second.
It's so hard to get through that indestructible armor that they have on. That's, I've harped on that in plenty of every other time we've talked about The Mandalorian. It's just such a dumb thing to me to do to your show. But going back to what you were saying a minute ago about, the pattern of Disney Star Wars just sort of backing off of things it sets up. And I mean, the sequel trilogy is really, I think it actually is, it's the JJ episodes are really doing it. Because one of the things about Force Awakens that I think hampers it and the whole trilogy is how it seems like dead set on avoiding any actual character conflicts. I mean, anything among the heroes. Like, the slightest bit of friction is all ironed off. That Poe and Finn are just the best of friends after knowing each other for 8 seconds. And, Rey's the nicest, most perfect girl ever, and everybody loves her immediately, and there's nothing really to do. And then, so Last Jedi comes around, and Rian Johnson has to sort of work overtime and arguably overcrank it the other direction, trying to introduce some conflicts here. And making Poe Dameron a mutinous fuck up.
Rian Johnson is kind of doing he's kind of doing it. He's just kind of doing it as a corrective. He's dropping the stupider shit that JJ set up, like Snoke, And at the same time, he actually gives Snoke probably as much juice as anything that has gotten that got set up and cut off. He actually allows Andy Serkis to play a scene there, but it's kind of a clearing of dead weight, but it is still just sort of a clearing, But
it's also, it's introducing a conflict between Finn and Rose about their respective levels of commitment to the Resistance that gets resolved, but it's actually a thing throughout that.
Oh, it's the best one. It's easily the best one. By default, it's the best one. It's no problem. But,
and people hate what he did to Luke Skywalker because it made him a curmudgeon that gave Rey something to actually bounce off of and, have some conflict with. And then what it does with Kylo Ren, I think what it's trying to do anyway is dispatch with all that Snoke stuff and saying, okay, we're going to run through all the Darth Vader Emperor, redemption, turn on your evil master redemption stuff kind of on fast forward just to clear off the deck and then establish that, but that doesn't actually make him a good guy and he's still going to be a bad guy going forward and he's the ultimate bad guy. And then, of course, Rise of Skywalker backs off that too and has to rehabilitate him, and it even makes Admiral Hux working with the good guys in a weird way, although it tosses it off so quickly. I don't know.
Oh yeah, well, Rise of Skywalker is the ultimate, and just like none of that matters.
The nadir of all this,
of course. Yeah.
But yeah, just the idea of introducing all these the whole of the Disney Star Wars, I think, especially at its weakest. This doesn't apply to Andor, but when it's bad, it's largely because it's so conflict averse. and that
isn't that weird?
It sets up these things that could be dramatic.
Isn't that so
and then
strange?
It's like,
yeah, like
I think this is a reflection of the sort of, the age of storytelling we're in, especially with this big IP stuff, your Star Wars and your Marvels and whatnot, that more and more the creative reins have been taken over by fans. And so things granted, part of it's just that we're in a new generation. And so as we do legacy heroes and rebootquels and remakes, where we're bringing in the old farts to reprise their roles, like there's a fan fiction element to that. And that's not always bad. Creed works.
Sure. I mean, is it also maybe a thing where it's just the high number of properties that connect to each other that are sort of reliant on the events of each other to work? Like Book of Boba Fett is basically like Mandalorian season 2.5. And
yes,
they're making more of these things. Ahsoka is going to be connected to that. Their other shows will be too. This was quietly announced that there's going to be a big sort of Avengers-style movie with all these characters. Filoni-verse kind of Grand Admiral Thrawn, appearing for the first time in Ahsoka. It's become... they're basically doing this the same way they did the lead up to the original Avengers, just with television properties on Disney+.
The trouble with that seems to be that they introduced all these people on Mandalorian already.
Right.
So you're not really connecting anybody for the first time. You're reconnecting them after we've seen them on the small scale.
Yes.
Interacting.
But they'll have, individual ongoing storylines or something. Like, there'll probably be a Ray Gun Givens will be in it, I don't know.
Yeah.
He'll get Boba Fett back, I guess, like everyone wants. However many more of these people are going to show up, whoever's going to take, I don't know, probably Bo-Katan. They'll all be...
Oh, definitely. And
yeah. I guess what that does is it makes it that you can't have long-term conflicts outstanding because it affects the chemistry of something else that isn't exactly related but is now related. And so you kind of have to have these anodyne, conflict-free states of being, like old television, basically, before it was heavily serialized, because there's just too many moving parts. Is that where we are with it?
I think part of it, too, is that because of the money at stake and the fact, especially with Star Wars, that they don't have a strong spine after the sequel trilogy of for the movies to go off of. I guess the Filoni-verse is the next big thing, and what that partly means is that more and more characters get sort of plot armored, right? Because they have to be preserved to potentially be the lead of their own streaming series or to appear in the big crossover event the way that Marvel heroes do. And that means, in the most basic sense of the plot armor, it means you can't kill off Ahsoka Tano or Bo-Katan or whatever, but it also seems to mean that we can't risk souring the audience on any of these people by having Ray Gun Givens be in meaningful conflict with our beloved hero of The Mandalorian for more than 4 minutes of screen time. It has to be well and truly resolved halfway through that episode so they can that seems to be the attitude of it, and I don't think that's true, but that seems to be the approach partly.
It's interesting. I think that they were pretty successful doing stuff like this through phase 1, 2, 3 of the MCU, when it was just, you're releasing 2 to 3 2-hour movies a year. And you have sort of a brain trust that is in charge of being okay, so Iron Man and Captain America hate each other right now, right? Yes, they do. Okay, that's cool. We can so that's the state of affairs for this, and we move on from there. They can keep track of little things like that, and those connections kind of made it feel richer and bigger. Now that there's so much more content, it's just a hamstringing of story possibilities. It's just when you're...
That is kind of what it's feeling like.
You got 8 hours to fill, but you can't change anything fundamentally in that. It becomes TV again, but it can't just be TV again. It has to be serialized too. So it's trying to do too many things at once, and then you throw a pandemic into it, and everything gets rescheduled and changed, and it becomes a real mess. and none of the old tricks work anymore.
As we're talking about the Marvel, phase 1 or 2 or 3 there, for as much as the rap that the MCU gets is that it's, baby food it's trying to appeal to everybody.
Yeah.
And, it's very safe entertainment, blah, blah, blah. It's not that's not true. It's definitely 4-quadrant, does want to please everybody. But when you look at those actual movies, like the thing that makes the first Avengers so much fun is that all those heroes are at each other's throats for the first 2/3 of it.
Mm-hmm.
And Civil War actually, doesn't even end with Captain America and Iron Man hugging it out. It's
close, but no, it doesn't.
The Guardians of the Galaxy, movie, they're a family by the end, but it takes the whole movie to get to that point. There's a lot of, again, just character conflict doesn't mean like one guy has to kill the other guy. Just
well, it's 2 hours easier than 8 hours then, like you would think you would have more opportunity to deepen relationships and find ways to make them stronger, more informed by event, if you have more time. But I don't know, wheel spinning is the result. And maybe it's because there's too many people trying to keep track of all this. Is this all just work in Filoni's head or Jon Favreau's head? Does it all kind of, build to something? It certainly doesn't feel like it. Like Book of Boba Fett does not feel like part of the plan, It feels like a mistake.
Well, it does feel like it's trying to, it feels like it's doing nothing else except setting up a whole bunch of different pieces of potential characters to work into future crossovers.
I guess.
Which was a huge detriment to that show, which I had a clear thing that it kind of should have been. Like that,
right.
When you hear that concept, what it wants to be. And instead, it's a prequel. I don't know. It's backdoor pilots for 8 different shows.
The existence of that show really shows you how bad this can get, and kind of takes away the benefit of the doubt that you might have given Mandalorian season 3, or that I might have given it. They're not operating with like a great idea in their heads. Is the feeling that I'm getting, and anything that doesn't work probably doesn't work because they just fucked it up. There's not going to be a payoff later for a lot of this stuff. Hard to think there is.
Well, I guess the bummer for me is that I think you're kind of right in diagnosing that part of the issue is that Star Wars was lacking the Kevin Feige figure, the unifying, the one brain that is kind of keeping track of all this stuff and steering it towards a particular thing. And you could say like it was Filoni and Favreau at the beginning of the show. I don't feel like Favreau has much voice in this anymore. I don't really have a hugely strong feeling about what Jon Favreau's creative voice is vis-a-vis Star Wars, but I have a definite feeling over time that The Mandalorian has just sort of grown into an offshoot of like Clone Wars and Rebels and stuff. Like, I haven't seen those shows, but I could definitely just spot when a certain character pops up, like, that feels like somebody who was on a cartoon originally.
Yeah, there was a bat guy in a bar in a later episode that I was just like, what? Him? Why him? I don't know who that is, but I'm getting something. And it turned out, yes, it's a character from the cartoon.
I'm like, the Shadow Council. Like, okay, you guys were definitely a computer generated, on that cartoon before you appeared here. So this feels like Filoni is taking all over this, which is a bummer for me. I don't think I like Filoni's general Star Wars take that much.
I guess I don't either. I like that somebody had a take. I don't know. I think he kind of got, there's certainly people who are big fans of that quadrant of Star Wars, but
for sure.
I never was, and I tried. I gave it a real shot a couple times, and I found it to be very difficult to get into every time. And I'm done trying, I would say.
Yeah. I know what's missing for me, which and because we had this conversation already, but we may as well do it here too. Is I feel like what the Filoni Star Wars stuff is missing is somebody who fucks. Because
certainly isn't there now. Yeah.
And to clarify that, not that we need to have sex scenes in Star Wars, but the fact that Han Solo fucks and you know that the moment you meet that guy or Lando, and the people in Andor are maybe.
No, they're having sex. Those guys. They're not
You get the sense that people in Andor aren't having very good sex, maybe, but
no,
but they're definitely aware of who wants to fuck who and who's more into it than the other one, and all that, and Mandalorian and Boba Fett and Obi-Wan. They're so fundamentally sexless shows that just nobody seems even aware of the act of copulation. And that, again, I'm focusing on sex here, but really it's just having any interests outside of the immediate need of the plot and just the goddamn lore, all the fucking rules of Mandalorian helmets. Like, just, again, if somebody aspired to be a musician, that would be something outside of this thing that would make the universe feel big and lived in again.
I mean, maybe that's what I'm getting at when I complain about their stupid cult stuff. Is that it robs any sense of verisimilitude from this show, from Star Wars. Like, you can't believe in these people. They don't appear to have day-to-day lives or existences that make any sense to me because they wear helmets all the time. But really, it's because they haven't been considered that way as characters. They are Saturday morning cartoon figures, And I don't say that pejoratively in this case. No, I do. I say it pejoratively in this case. Yes.
Not as a rule.
Not as a rule, yes. And they're not, nobody fucking is is just sort of a way of articulating that thing, I guess. And,
it feels like the Mandalorians, either on a Saturday morning cartoon or in a comic book, they would make sense. I think that's, like, on the pages of a comic book, the helmet thing plays better. Because you get the thing like in superhero comics, most notably like Rorschach in Watchmen. His mask has got the conceit that it's this white mask with this black sort of ink blob that's constantly moving around in there. And in live action, it would be constantly shifting and moving. But on a comic panel, every panel you draw it in a different shape it happens to be at that time, and you can fudge that to sort of make the mask emote in a way that you can make Spider-Man's mask emote, or you can do, panels where Iron Man's helmet looks distressed or surprised or angry, even though it's fundamentally just the same thing. And in live action, you can't really do that with a Boba Fett helmet or anything. Like, it's not great suited for it even in a cartoon helmet because nothing about it. It's not like Spider-Man's mask moves with his face a little bit or something, but you really can't do that in live action, and especially when you're trying to do dramatic scenes of people emoting at each other through these helmets. It just doesn't play. I mean, as far as I'm concerned.
Interesting. That's actually the same problem as the Jon Favreau Lion King. Actually.
Oh yeah, okay.
If you see that, like, the cartoon lions can emote. Realistic looking ones can't. They don't look right when they're crying about their dad or whatever. They just look like lions.
Yeah, because the cartoon ones you can draw to make them look a little more human.
Exactly. Exactly. Real looking lions don't do that. Their eyes don't move in that way. So, interesting. Huh. I don't know what that means, but it is an interesting parallel.
It just means they should get rid of the fucking helmets. That's all.
I was hoping that's where this season was going, honestly.
I know.
Once it became clear, like, this is the story about the Mandalorian cult. Okay, well, hopefully the end is he doesn't want to be in the cult anymore.
Nope.
Hopefully he wants to take the helmet off and, be free of this whole thing.
He does retire from the cult, sort of, I guess. Not really. He doesn't make a decision to leave the cult, but he does kind of leave them for that happily ever after thing. That was another one of the things with they announce that, I will officially adopt him, and he will officially become a Mandalorian apprentice, and we will give him a Mandalorian name. I'm like, haven't we already done this? Like, maybe twice? Everybody's been referring to him as your kid and your son for so long.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty decisive once Luke Skywalker brought him back, you might say.
Yeah.
I was thinking they were going to give him Mandalorian armor.
They started to.
That'd be fun, right? If he had a helmet too.
No, I mean,
you can see his face.
I think they may have hit a wall too of like saying, okay, we can't actually do action sequences of this little Muppet flipping around and just the Praetorian Guards keystone copping it around, flailing at him.
Yeah,
there are limitations to some of the story things they've chosen here. Is what I'm getting at, I guess.
Yeah, and that doesn't have to be the case. Like, now, I guess there's a way that we come back for season 4, and it is just like, just straight up bounty hunter adventures, or is it just more likely that there isn't a season 4 proper, and we just see these characters again in other shows, including the big Filoniverse movie about Thrawn or whatever, and maybe there's no Mandalorian season 4 until they need to do one because other things have been unpopular for a while or something like that.
Yeah. Or they could come back, they could retire Din Djarin and call it the Mandalorians and have Bo-Katan be the main character, and we could live on Mandalore. I'm not saying I want to do that, but
that's
they
rough.
Could.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I guess they could, yeah. Mm-hmm. And it wouldn't be the most surprising thing. Katie Sackhoff, yay or nay? What do you think?
I was a big fan of hers. I think it's a fucking travesty what the Botox has done to her face, because she used to have a very expressive face. That was a big part of her charm. Mm-hmm. And my whole thing here is I want people to take off these helmets so I can see somebody emote, and she takes it off and their face is still frozen in this rictus mask that hardly emotes. So it's a bummer, I think.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, look, Cara Thrace is one of the great sci-fi crushes you can get, really.
Yeah, you're not going to follow up that character very well in another sci-fi context that's tamer.
Yeah, it's a tough one to beat, and then they did not give her the material needed to do so here. But so it goes.
No, I mean, and also
she's an okay character. I think that character was I didn't mind being around Bo-Katan this season.
Yeah, but I continually came away frustrated they wouldn't just let her be in more direct conflict with the helmet weirdos and let them have it out and let her win. Instead, they have her sort of acquiesce to them, and then they hand her the leadership. Mm-hmm. And they're like, this doesn't seem to fit with anything I thought I understood about this culture anyway, and it's also just dramatically inert.
Right, it is the most uninteresting thing they could do dramatically with those characters. There's almost every step of the way this season, you could say the least interesting, least conflict choice was taken.
The one exception being the sort of the backdoor pilot for the other show, which is apparently a Disney Plus thing, where a couple episodes of your show have to just be episodes of another show. But when they did the stuff with the spy on Coruscant, who's betraying the other defector scientist guy, and I didn't really know what was going on there, and it was super weird that there was just one scene of Bo-Katan Mandalorian stuff stapled on either end of it that had no direct connection to it. But it's okay, well, I guess that's where it suddenly becomes a 2/3 strength Andor episode, and that's better than I like that better than the other thing. So
I'm down on this episode because it was it was so off topic and off tone for the show, and yes, as you say, a not as good version of the other show, of a different show. The characters are not interesting and not important in the scheme of things, as it turns out. You could just not have that episode entirely, and it would not affect the season at all.
That's true. It's an elegant for sure. But yeah, it's entirely for the later team up show or whatever, or just if they're going to do a show about that spy character, I don't know. Another person is okay, you're definitely from a cartoon or a game or something that other people are recognizing you immediately, but I do not.
Is she even? I thought she was interesting, but no, I didn't get the sense there was more to that character that I wasn't privy to. Yeah, I don't like that episode. So what did I like? I came into this episode thinking I was going to defend this show, and I'm kind of like, well, shit. I week to week, I like the Ray Harryhausen bird episode. That's what I liked. I liked the silly one about that. I liked the pirate episode. Okay, it did seem, as you say, to resolve itself incredibly fast and with the least amount of actual conflict, but some good pirate designs and stuff. I like the big Moss Man. That was fun. He looked like a He-Man villain.
Yes, the Moss Man was great.
Yeah.
we obviously Grogu getting his droid walker
That was fun.
Soundboard button.
I think Carl Weathers is quietly become one of my favorite characters on the show at some point. He seems to have to be matching the tone of the show better than anyone, really.
Yeah, he doesn't have to wear a dumb helmet.
Yeah. He doesn't, but he wears he's got a silly costume nonetheless. He does feel like a Saturday morning cartoon character, but he's kind of the best at doing that in some ways.
Well, and if there's anybody on this show who fucks, it's Grief Karga.
You're right. You're right. It's definitely Grief Karga. Yeah.
Yeah, he seems like he has some interests outside of Mandalorian culture. He's got his own thing going on. So, yeah, I mean, I guess it did become somehow the most successful character on the show in a way, by my estimation. No,
wow, how about
some of the action stuff.
Things,
yeah, some of the action beats, like, they can be fun I mean, look, I said I don't like that they've made it a starter kit, that every Mandalorian gets their jetpack and their flamethrower and their grappling wire, but some of the action beats that they work around those are fun when they're beating up on the stormtroopers and neck stabbings.
Oh no, we got rocked by another giant beast. Oh no. Oh, it happened during the ceremony this time. Oh no.
Just like last time.
That would have been the perfect ending for the season, honestly, if they were having their little mythosaur ceremony down in the water and giant mythosaur came out and attacked everyone. That would have been the most fun. That would have been kind of the perfect ending to the season, actually.
Honestly, it would have. You could have all the Mandalorians being scared and scattering, and Bo-Katan sort of like yelling at them and, gathering them. Mandalorians assemble and putting on her helmet to fly into the fray. And that you could go to the credits on that. That'd be great. But here's the thing: that would make the mythosaur a villain. And we don't really do villains in the Filoni version. Boba Fett even has to make friends with the Rancor, as we recall. Mythosaur, it's got merchandising potential, I guess, so it's got to be her pet, not her nemesis.
Well, okay. We didn't much talk about Moff Gideon here because there's not much to say. But I did appreciate that Giancarlo Esposito kind of just like leaned into being a Snidely Whiplash pantomime villain this time. Yeah. He was just like, I'm going to be... for an actor that is kind of like... Well, his most famous role, of course, defined by control and quietude. In this, he's just like swinging for the fences, being hilarious big, He's being a Dungeons and Dragons villain. He's ginormous in this, and that's quite fun. He's fun.
Yeah.
Given they've given up on that character, basically, being anything other than a silly villain. He really went for it and went full Raul Julia Street Fighter. He was having fun.
Yeah, and it's a little too late at that point. And like I said, there is. It would have made all the sense in the world. The way they seemed to initially be setting him up in the first season is, okay, let's do Gus Fring as a Grand Moff Fring, and that would make sense. It seems like that's a little closer to what Admiral Thrawn might be. But setting him up for that, Giancarlo Esposito could rock that out of the park. He could be your overarching villain for a whole big spin-off series or whatever in that role. But they didn't really find anything to do with that character.
Not a thing, really.
So eventually he's like, all right, if this is really it, then I think I'm going to shift gears from Gus Fring to bugging out. If that's okay with you guys. Seems like that's something I can bring here. And you kind of wish they had done that earlier.
If this was how he was supposed to be from the start, it would have been fun at least. It could have been, just full on the whole time and had been written that way from the start. It would have been great. But he's like, no, my clone army. More of that.
Yes,
more of that. That would have been perfect. Everything what was it? Everything I have plus the Force.
The Force, yes.
That's
Look
good
at
fun.
My Dark Trooper armor,
made of Beskar. Yeah. I mean, good times. And you're right. I think too little, too late. Because if that's his deal, don't save him for a surprise. It's not shocking anybody that you're bringing back Moff Gideon.
Right.
Like, you did that whole episode 3 or 4 with Dr. Pershing. He's not even in it? That's nuts. They also set up a thing that maybe Mandalorians are working with him and then did nothing with it.
That's true.
That's another thing
they didn't even... I thought that was supposed to, like, at least throw suspicion on them with the Republic, so that the Republic would maybe be going after...
was that what that was? I was hoping Moff Gideon was posing as one of them the whole time, and they didn't know because he had a stupid helmet on.
That would be, at least, we'd use the stupid helmets against them would be nice. But that's what I thought they were going. I thought they were setting up, and but that would be a thing. You got your friendly Republic fighter pilot guy that just wants to help the Mandos, and if he's assigned to go after them because they think the Mandos are working for Moff Gideon, hey, there's some character conflict. Can't have that though. So
no,
it sets something up and does nothing. Puts on the tee and takes no swing.
I mean, yeah, it did set that up, but for all it meant nothing, right? There was no reason there was Beskar there.
Yeah, I don't know.
Or was it his troops? I don't care to figure this out. I don't.
Yeah, whatever. It's all done now.
Really done. I don't know. He's done, right? No more Giancarlo Esposito. I think they wrote him out.
Yeah, I would think so. I would hope so. I mean, sure.
Who knows,
could contrive
right?
to have him survive. Of course, it's Star Wars. He's
got cloning
clone technology. Yeah. But it doesn't seem like I can't imagine Giancarlo Esposito is super engaged with this material.
Didn't seem to be. Yeah.
So
I can play a villain on other shows. Thank you.
Yeah. They'll give me a little more to work with.
All right. We certainly talked about Mandalorian here, like more than I expected to.
Yeah.
I had very little good to say about it in the end, as it turns out. Oh, well.
And I said everything negative about it, and I was done with it, and yet it comes back again next year. I might end up watching it again because it's short episodes, short seasons. It just kind of slips by.
Or it never comes back either. That could also happen. And that'd be fine, too. All right, well.
So that's it. We'll probably never talk about Star Wars again. Right?
What's the next Star Wars? Ahsoka? I don't care to watch. I don't care about Ahsoka. I mean,
I like Rosario Dawson, so I might at least give that one a look.
Yeah, maybe we'll see. Okay.
Andor season 2, baby. It's coming eventually.
Oh, right.
Probably not this year.
That's the next one. No. Okay. So that's it. All right. No more Star Wars ever. Bye.
Bye.